So how do you decide how much to work? Now, for most people, this is kind of a idiotic question, if you will, because their boss decides how much they're going to work, right? It's like if you take this job, you will work X number of hours, and that's our company policy, and you will abide by that unless you want to get your butt fired. And so that's the case for most people. Now, there are a lot of people who are self-employed, and there's also a lot of people that work from home, and probably quite a few people who, I'm not saying those are the exact same groups there. I'm making different categories here potentially that could overlap. And then there's people that maybe they kind of have some flexibility or flex jobs, whether it's like a gig worker or you know driving Uber, or maybe you do hourly work for a company, but they give you some flexibility on how many hours you put in. Or maybe like in my case, I have a lot of clients who are on a monthly retainer type setup, and so I have monthly account maintenance that I do on their ads, but the exact date on which I do that work is not highly specified necessarily. I need to get it done on a monthly basis, and I kind of have a routine. I've got a schedule for when in the month that I try to get that done for them. So back to the original question, how do you decide how much to work? So the reason this is interesting to me right now is because I'm doing a kind of mini vacation, sabbatical, mental reset, whatever you want to call it. So I've been pretty busy over the last several months. I've brought some new clients on. We had vacation, so I had to go see family. So I had to work extra beforehand, extra afterwards, basically to get caught up, that type of thing. So anyway, very blessed to have work and have been busy, and that's great. However, it means that for me, the way my business is set up, since I do most of the work in my company, then it's really very dependent on me. So it's like if the work is going to get done, I'm going to be the one doing it. And so also, since I'm the one producing most of the revenue in the company, then it in terms of like for the company to be successful, it feels like, well, I need to do a lot of work in order to keep more hours. Basically, is more better in terms of company revenue. So these are some of the factors for me personally that play into how many hours I work. Now, also, societal norms actually do play into how many hours I work. So now I had been trying to, and this perhaps somewhat fell by the wayside, but I had been trying to take off. I say not take off, is basically trying to on Fridays have that more available for administrative work, accounting, taxes, stuff like that, and then also trying to allow some time in there for sort of some bigger picture stuff. Whether it's kind of sharpen the saw type of stuff, to where it's I can either get better at my craft, or I can learn about new ideas for advertising, or come up with maybe spend some time thinking about a solution for a client, or maybe some business growth stuff. Maybe to spend some time listening to an audiobook on how to grow my company or things like that. So I was already trying to do some of that, but this week I am doing something much more aggressive. Now, I will set this up by saying that this is the end of the month here, and so it is the perfect week for me to be having a lighter load, because most of my monthly work has been done already, and I don't have a lot of miscellaneous projects sitting around, so that's nice. But what I'm doing this week is for my sort of mini sabbatical, is I am working in the morning, and then the afternoons I'm taking off. Now, I'm allowed to do business related things, like I can listen to audiobooks on business. I can think about where my company's at, journal, all that stuff, reflective things, educational things, etc. But for the most part, I am limiting my production work to the morning. And so it's really a fascinating experiment from several standpoints, right? One of the things that is kind of fascinating is it kind of raises that whole question again of how much work should I do? How many hours should I put in, right? Because, here in American culture, we have this idea that essentially the mainstream idea is that a 40-hour work week is what a normal, decent human being does. If you're an extra good person, maybe you put in some extra hours, but then this starts kind of getting balanced by the idea, well, if you work too many hours, you're also probably being a bad family person. So working too much is not good, but working quite a bit is good. Now, if you were to, and then there's also, of course, there's the whole like FIRE movement, which is like the people that want to retire early, and then of course there's retirees. So I bump into retirees a lot because I play pickleball, and a lot of those people are retirees. And so it kind of, the contrast can be a little bit jarring sometimes between my life and theirs. If they want to go play pickleball on a Thursday morning, and then it's like, well, the only question really is whether they feel like it, and so sometimes I'm a little jealous of like, man, these guys can just go play pickleball whenever, wherever, and here I am, I've got to, I've got to do work, but at the same time, would I want to be, well, let's just say there are advantages to being a younger person. So, and also, there is fun to be had in work. So, just sitting around playing pickleball, probably not my cup of tea. But yeah, like I've raised, like mentally, I've toyed with the question, like, what if I only worked in the morning 5 days a week for the rest of my life, or like just as a general policy? Like, would that be possible? Would it be irresponsible? Would it actually be excellent because it would force me to outsource more work as it came in, and it forced me to be better at delegation, and I would actually do a better job at growing into a real company because I would have to outsource more? Would I be a more effective leader of my company because I had time to think about the business, not just work in it, and because I would have more emotional energy available for the business? I think I find that to some extent, I do so much production work right now that, at the end of the day, I don't have a lot of desire to listen to a book on business after I quit work at 5:30 in the evening, because I've been in business all day. I've been doing most of my work is mental type work. It's sitting at a computer doing things, and so my mental bandwidth for really, I kind of feel at that point like I'm just ready to be entertained and to do relaxing things. I'm not really up for a lot of serious, hardcore business educational stuff. Whereas with what I'm doing now, I think I feel a shift there in terms of like I'm kind of got some audiobooks. I'm kind of eager this afternoon to spend some time listening to some business audiobooks and get some inspiration, ideas, and so forth. So, we have societal norms, I think, play a big part into how much work a lot of people do, especially for us, those of us who are self-employed or who own a company. We really don't have anybody. Generally, we don't have anybody that says we have to work X number of hours. We get to choose, and so it's an open question. What's the right amount of time for you to work? What's the optimum for your business? And then what's the optimum for your family? And what kind of compromise do you make between those two, if there is one? And is it possible that different personalities are much different? So whereas some personalities maybe can do 60-hour work weeks continuously and not have too much of a decrease in productivity, that other personalities maybe they're actually much better working 25 hours a week, and the type of work they do or the type of personality, they can be equally productive doing that, but they enjoy life a lot more because they're gassed up and they're ready to go hard whenever they do work. So for instance, I have a task that I do pretty much every week, writing several emails for a client, and it can be kind of a tedious project. It can kind of especially if I get started a little bit late in the morning, maybe I had some other miscellaneous tasks I was doing or was spending some time with family or something. And so my morning didn't get started really promptly in terms of when I actually buckled down to start getting these emails done. Maybe I was debating for a while, like, well, what should the topics of the emails be this week? Or, things like that. And then, and so it can kind of drag out to where, eventually maybe I can even have usually I get it wrapped up in the morning, okay? But there can be some times when it bleeds over into afternoon. It's like maybe I have the emails kind of mostly ready, but I still have to do some work with the discount codes, or I've got to add some photos or something like that, in the early afternoon. Whereas this morning, knowing that I had these emails to write and that I was limiting myself to working in the morning, I adjusted my morning schedule a little bit. I had prayer with Rachel this morning a little more in a more timely fashion, so we could be wrapped up and done by, on the dot of 8 o'clock pretty much. And I was able to get right down to business, took care of a few miscellaneous tasks, and then got to work on the emails. And I didn't dilly-dally around a lot on the topic of the email, or a lot on which discounts we were running this week. And and then I was able to get it knocked out by, I think I was done by 10 o'clock. And this is sometimes something I don't get done by 12, right? So it is, productivity is such the correlation between time and productivity, I think, is probably more flexible than most of us think it is. And it's an interesting exercise to try to compress the time and see how you can alter productivity. Now, you could say, well, you lose quality, you lose blah, blah, blah. And it's possible that you can lose quality, right? Like, that's something you definitely need to pay attention to. If I had employees and I say, look, you only have this much amount of time to do this thing, it would be important to have checks in place to see, or kind of quality control to make sure that things are still getting done right within the time allotted. But it is interesting how much that can be potentially compressed, even when it seems like it shouldn't be able to be that compressed that much. So what about you? How do you decide how much you work?